Welcome back to Your Passion, Purpose, and Personal Brand. I'm your host, Lisa McGuire. And this season, we are exploring what it means to be successfully stuck. That place where your effort hasn't stopped, but your energy or outcomes have. And today we're talking about one of the biggest reasons high achievers get stuck, creating tons of smart content that doesn't actually create connection. And my guest today is Adam Pounds, and he knows that really well. He's a content strategist, relationship architect, and trusted advisor to thought leaders who want to turn their ideas into conversations that drive genuine business growth. Adam has spent years helping experts, coaches, and founders transform their visibility efforts into real relationships. What makes his approach stand out is the humanity he brings to the digital connection. And it definitely caught my attention. He reminds us that people don't buy from algorithms, they buy from resonance. So, Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yes, we're going to dive right in here, Adam. And I want to know, what does successfully stuck mean to you? And where do you see it show up most often for people who are actively posting, creating, and showing up online?
Yeah, successfully stuck. Ooh, that to me, I think it's an interesting because it's the two words together, right? Success, but then also stuck. And I think for some of us high achievers or folks that have skills that we want to bring to the world, we want to have an impact in the world, it can feel frustrating sometimes when we are actively doing the things that we know we should be doing. And getting results, but not having the results that we ultimately want, or knowing that there's that next step where it's possible to have just a little bit more opportunities, a little bit more success for ourselves, for our clients, and in this case, success for the content that we're creating, that we're pouring our time and effort and energy into, and to say like, why is it not working? Why am I still only getting a few likes and a few impressions, and why is it not resulting in the business success that I'm hoping to get? So I would say there's kind of two things, successfully stuck on the life side, and then sometimes successfully stuck on business, and in this case, like, content strategy, those kind of things. But
right. And there's really a blurry line between the two. It's kind of hard to know where one ends and the other begins, but
yeah.
It makes me curious, was there a personal moment or a client moment when you realized that more content wasn't the answer, that something deeper needed to shift?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a blend of my own story and the story of the early days when I was creating content for clients. So when I first started, I am a part owner of a solar company here in Kansas, and what I was able to do with that company is, like, we were able to build it to a point where it was continuing to operate without me. And so I was like, great, this is a chance for me and my wife to maybe take like a mini exit, an opportunity to go build something else. And so we came to this idea of the internet being an incredible place to play in, and an incredible place to connect with people from all over the world and have incredible impact. And so what I did was took the knowledge and experience that I had developing this solar company about implementing systems and processes, and was like, great, let's do that for other businesses at scale on the internet. And so one of the best ways to do that was content. That was the thing that kind of kept standing out to us, was education. Because one, I learn a lot when I get a chance to teach other people. And so I was like, great, we'll just learn how to create content and start producing it for the internet. And boy, that was already a lesson in just how to do that, and how to do it well. Some of my early stuff, like, just complete flops in terms of like no engagement, and probably rightly so. It was fairly egotistical. I was just trying to like write stuff that I found interesting. But the shift happened once I started to realize that the content that we were making really needed to be helpful to other people. Mm-hmm. And it was thinking about the other person that really made that shift. So I started working with clients to help them kind of make that shift as well. It's like, how can we create content that was really helpful, that then ultimately led people to this, to like business conversations, to sales conversations, that then we could start to work with them. And so what we found, though, is as we just continued to produce more and more and more content, there wasn't a feedback loop. There wasn't an opportunity for those that hard effort and that work that we were putting in and thinking about the other person and what they might need to know, that wasn't translating into opportunity because we were just trusting the algorithm, right? We were just producing content and hoping that LinkedIn was kind enough to share it with the people that actually needed it. And so I realized that there was this next step, this proactive approach to matchmaking, to taking the valuable content that we were creating that people actually need and trying to identify who in the world is actually struggling with the things that we can solve and how can we connect them with this information, so that it became so that they could solve their problems, right? And once we started thinking about that, actually again changed the way that I created content in the first place, because I was like, if I actually need to get this into the hands of someone who needs it, then it now has to solve a problem. Like the content I create has to solve a problem. And so it changed the way that we think about content and changed the way that we, again, proactively got that content into the hands of someone that needed it. So that was kind of our whole roundabout way of saying, like, this was that journey to say there was a proactive approach to getting information into the hands of people who need it.
And there is a lot of value in doing that. But what I am seeing, and I had a conversation with a colleague, it was actually yesterday, and she talked about how she stepped off of LinkedIn in June and has just come back. And we're recording this here in mid-November. And the difference that she saw between that time when she left and the time that she's come back. We are not lacking information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is no lack of information. Mm-hmm. And where I have moved a little bit more is expertise is no longer enough. So one thing I know you do really well, Adam, is you put that human element back in business. Mm-hmm. So for those people who are on this hamster wheel of I'm creating content, I'm answering questions, I'm the expert, and I'm competing with AI, mm-hmm. how do you suggest that we start bringing humanity back to business?
I think it comes down to the one-on-one interactions. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference there is content is one to many. Great opportunity to help spread the word, but really it comes down to seeing someone recognizing that someone else is literally on the other side of their computer screen, either reading the content that you're creating, or in this case, outreach, like messaging and starting conversations in direct messages. Do the things that don't scale, right? Have one-on-one conversations. And my favorite way to start those conversations, and again, this came from this idea of creating value and getting it into someone's hands. Oftentimes, unfortunately, our LinkedIn DMs are also flooded with AI and flooded with like bots, and it's just like, or the term everyone uses is pitch slapping, right? Like you get in and it's just immediately like, here's buy from me, right? And what I was thinking was like, there has to be a way to start these human interactions, these conversations in a way that can bring people's guards down through generosity, through giving. And so that led us to this approach of what we call value first outreach, which was I want to have a real human interaction with you, and I'm willing to put a little bit more extra effort to create something or to know you enough to give you something that's going to be valuable without asking. And so I think that's like the humanity piece is like, how could we actually solve people's problems? We have so much information, like you said, on the internet, but also about like we're leaving digital breadcrumbs all over. Like I can start to understand what someone is struggling with. And how could I just like, how cool would it be to be like, hey, I see that you're struggling with this thing. I've solved it. Here it is. Let's have a conversation and just, see where this goes. Cause yeah, it's just a fun way to think about it.
And I want to call out, a conversation we had several weeks ago and how you actually put this in action, Adam, because we talked about what you were doing. We met at a conference and I asked you, how do you see with what you do to be able to serve the audience I have? And you followed my digital breadcrumbs. Like I could tell you did the research, you looked at my information and you came back to me with this amazing outline of what we could talk about today, which for those of you who are listening to this episode and you're going to walk away and say, wow, that was really valuable. This was all Adam. This is all Adam doing this work. And it brought to me as a podcast host it made it an easy yes for me to say Adam can provide value to my audience. And as a result, all of you listening, if you're not following Adam on LinkedIn, you should. I learn a lot from him, but also just that connection and providing that value. So I don't know if you realized it, but you actually did it. You modeled it for us.
There you go. Well, and as a way of kind of showing what this could look like, I'd like to take basically this conversation we have here and some of the additional research and like put it together into, I don't know exactly what the frame is going to look like a workbook of some sort or some sort of information that people can have and learn how to implement some of these techniques for themselves, because this is the arbitrage opportunity we have nowadays, or like you zig when everyone zags. Is everyone's going, AI for like that connection piece. And it's like, no. We're going to use AI and technology and information to like gather the stuff, but then I'm going to show up with that deep human intelligence piece, like the one that actually can think through these things and think about who you are as a person across the internet, across the computer screen here, so that I can talk to you in a way that is meaningful to you, because I recognize you, Lisa, have hopes, dreams, desires, aspirations, and are trying to achieve something. And so if we can just come together as people and have this conversation, that's really what matters. But how do you do that? And how can you use something like LinkedIn as a tool to make that happen? And so again, that was something that was really powerful. And so to talk about that even further, to make it real, I did use a lot of your digital breadcrumbs, but what I did is I had my systems in place to go do a lot of research for me. So I could say like, go out and find me everything about Lisa and what she's trying to do and where she's going, and then bring that in. And then I get to bring humanity to it, to like read it, understand it, take the time to then be able to write something and craft something, like a positioning for this podcast to say like, how can we bring something of value to your audience? How can we help them go from successfully stuck to unstuck? Right. I guess what's your alternative way of saying, what's the transformation that we're after there?
Yeah. What is the transformation? We want people to be able to drop the mask and the performance and become authentic, right? Yeah. To have that human connection in there. But, I think, Adam, what you talked about there, just even having the system, I imagine if people, and I'm sure you as well, the amount of people that connect with you on LinkedIn, and then they go in and they either offer you what you are already selling, right?
Yeah, right.
Or, I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me and suggested that maybe I start a business or maybe I start a podcast. And I think, have you even looked at any of my content? And so, that gets them into the penalty box with me. Like you're not going to be.
You got to climb out of it now at that point. Yeah.
yeah. If ever. But what I want to get to, and we keep skirting around to it, but I know we're going to get right into the meat of it, is you've developed this practical way to move from posting to connecting through this 3 R's framework you have. Could you walk us through how that works and what changes when people use it?
For sure. Okay. So let's dive in. Let's make this really practical, because I want people to walk away from this conversation to say like, oh, great, I could go implement this today. All right. So what we developed when I was thinking about outreach in the first place, I was not afraid, but like I did not want to do cold outreach in a way that felt spammy. I was like, it doesn't sit right with me. I hated getting it. I try, I would like try it every now and then, do a little outreach. And I was like, oh, this just doesn't feel good. But I knew that I needed to have conversations. I needed to proactively start conversations in order to be able to help people. Because again, we were posting, we were putting valuable content out, but it wasn't driving the results that we wanted to see. And so what I said, as I thought back to first principles, there has to be a way to do outreach, to proactively reach out to someone that is value first and doesn't feel like spam. And what we found was this idea of, we kind of developed it, was what we call the 3R strategy, which is when you reach out to the right person at the right time with the right value, it's not spam, it's service.
Yes.
And the analogy I use in this is a person wandering through the desert. So someone is wandering through the desert. The sun is beating down on them. It's hot. They're dying of thirst. And you walk up next to them and say, hey, looks like you're thirsty. Here's a glass of water. Right? Well, that doesn't feel like spam. You're not going to say like, dude, get away from me. Like, why are you bothering me? It's like, thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. I needed this water. How did you know? And so the goal with our intent flywheels methodology and with the 3R framework is how can we identify that right person, someone in the desert at the right time when they're really thirsty, dying of thirst, and then to understand what is the value that we could give to them. What is that cold glass of water that we could offer to them to where they say thank you instead of, dude, why are you in my inbox? Right. And so that's that idea of like empathy leads to like the ability to solve problems, because I have to be able to empathize with you to understand what you're trying to accomplish and where you are. Do you already have a podcast? Do you already have a business? And so then why would I reach out to say like, hey, what if you started a podcast and started a business? It's like, that's spam, because that was unwanted, unwarranted. Like you didn't do your homework to make this a valuable interaction. So the 3R framework is learning how to identify the right person at the right time with the right value. And one of my favorite ways to do that is actually through just looking for signals on LinkedIn. So when someone is, I guess we'll use the podcast as an example. For podcast hosts that are taking the time and effort to bring and bring on guests to solve problems for their audience, you're putting a lot of time and effort and energy into this. Again, this is the content piece. So how can we take this podcast and share it with someone who is going to get value from it? One of my favorite ways is to think about the guest. So if you're bringing on a guest, you can say the people that already know, like, and trust this person are going to be engaging with their content on LinkedIn and in their world. It also tells you what they're struggling with to a certain extent, because obviously this thought leader talks about something in particular, solves a specific problem. So what we can do is we can take this episode and then reach out to their audience and say like, hey, I see that you're into this guest that I just brought on. I just had him on my podcast. We broke down this framework and we talked about this thing, and we, introduced the 3R framework and how you can do outreach and whatever it is that the conversation was about. And then you can send that to them, and they already know, like, and trust the guest that you had on the podcast. They we know that they're interested in this topic, and so you get thank yous. That's what we've been seeing with the guests that the podcast that we've been working with, and just thinking about this value first outreach. My favorite thing is when you get the, oh my gosh, thank you. I really appreciate that. So for your audience that is interested in implementing something like this, it comes from a place of understanding. Understand who that right person is. What is that right time? What are the intent signals that we could know that they're actually in the desert, thirsty? And then how could we solve their problem? Like really, like how could you solve their problem without their permission? Like, just like, hey, here's something, like I made this. And I think it would help you in this situation. And then to be able to then drop the curtain, drop the barriers, and then get to that place of that deep human connection to say like, how was it? What are you trying to accomplish? Where are you going? Like, what are you resonating with? Yeah, those kind of things. So that's that's one way of thinking about how you can implement something like this.
No, that's great. That's great. And I love frameworks because it gives us, steps to follow and understanding all of that. But you did mention something, Adam, about permission. And I know you also support the idea of permission-based outreach.
Yeah.
Why is asking before offering such a powerful shift?
Well, one of the things I think about this, and that's, yeah. So like this is our outreach script, and you'll see the permission asking there at the bottom of it, which is, hey, I see that you're into this person or struggling with this topic. I just solved it or created this thing that helps with this situation. Is it cool if I send you the link, or thought it might be valuable? Is it okay if I send it over to you? Part of that is it just feels better to not have the messages like sent out to be like, hey, here it is. I've already, I don't know. There's just something about that. Asking permission, put someone else in the driver's seat to a certain extent to give them autonomy, to give them the ability to say like, I'm good, thank you. And that's fine. Like there's a big world out there, and we don't need to be, again, spamming people to jump in. So there's just like this small little ask, just like, is it cool if I send it over to you? I thought it might be valuable.
Yes.
So like, yeah.
Yeah. I think asking permission is just kind.
Yeah. That's it. It's just like so it's interesting though, because there's also this concept that I learned from a gentleman named Jordan Crawford, and he calls it the permissionless value proposition.
Okay.
So it's like permission based, but without permission, in the
Mhm.
sense of, if I could really truly understand the challenge that you have, and I could send you a message that has inherent value, like that alone has value, and I don't like, you don't actually have to engage with me in any way to walk away from it with something. And so I think there's like this fine line, because a lot of times when people hear permission and hear, asking, they then immediately go into their sales script, where I'm going to
Yes.
come in and start doing discovery questions. It's like, no. That's not what we're doing. The goal here is permissionless value, in the sense of like, I already have an idea of what you're struggling with because I've done my research. I've already created something, spent the time and effort and energy to solve this problem. But before I just like shove it in your face, I'm just going to say like, I recognize where you're at. I recognize what you're struggling with, and here's something that could help. Is it cool if I send it over? It's not a discovery question. It's not what are you trying to accomplish? At least from the beginning. Eventually, you get there once you've earned their trust. So, yeah,
No,
that's my only caveat with that, is don't just jump into discovery.
no, because then that gets you to a whole different realm, which that's another podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So, Adam, let's talk about the elephant, or maybe we could call it the co-pilot in the room, and that's AI. What I would love to know is how you are using AI to build these relationships instead of replacing them, because I think people are looking at AI as the easy button. Oh, I don't have to engage with people. I will use my bot, and people have named them, right? I have a name for my AI. But what advice would you give listeners about integrating AI into their process with heart?
Yes. So I actually am a big proponent of AI as a technology when it's used to do the things that it does really, really well, and to facilitate me doing the things that I do really, really well. And so I like to think about kind of splitting these things apart. What are the things that artificial intelligence is really good at? It's really good at ingesting massive amounts of data and finding signal amongst the noise, bringing that to you so that you as the human can then make decisions. I think that's probably one of the most powerful pieces. And so a lot of the work that I do is, how can we use AI to ingest this data or look for signals? And then I get to bring myself into this conversation to reach out to someone. And I think that would be like one caveat, is like, be really, really cautious about using AI for anything that interacts with another human.
Mhm.
Yeah, because what I want to do is not automate away my outreach. I want to automate away all of the tedious work that then lets me focus on the thing that I do best, which is those conversations. So, for example, we have, systems that are constantly like monitoring engagement patterns on LinkedIn to see who is struggling with which thing or which challenging topic, because we can see what they're engaging with. If someone is engaging with content related to, content strategy or LinkedIn engagement, or just all of these different areas about growing on LinkedIn, that tells me that they're interested in this type of information. I then can pull that in, go do some research to see if they're the type of person that we would be able to help. And then I can reach out as a human to say like, hey, I see that you're struggling with this type of issue. And I don't have to like send my Jarvis over to say hi for me. It's like, instead it's a matter of like bringing that humanity piece into it. And from like a real practical perspective, one of my favorite ways to bring humanity into your interaction with AI is through voice, through talking. So one thing that people don't realize with AI, one of the best ways that you can, one of the things that's really, really good at is transcription. So being able to turn your audio into text for it to interact with. So whenever I'm thinking about AI or thinking about using it or building a system, one of my favorite ways to do that is just to talk, like turn on the microphone and just like talk. I'll say all the different things, all of the trailing thoughts, all the bunny trails, all the ideas, what I want, what I don't want, examples, and just like 5 minutes of me just of yammering. And the results that I'm getting from it are much closer aligned to like who I am as a person, rather than if I were just to like give it like 4 bullet points or to trust a prompt that someone else engineered for me. It's like, I want to be able to like really bring it to bear for me, for how Adam thinks. And so that's one of my favorite ways of utilizing this technology.
So dig into that a little bit deeper, because I think people are looking at what is, we've heard garbage in, garbage out. It all depends on the prompt, right? So we've heard that. We've heard, okay, here's what I want to say, and here's the bullet points. But what does it look like when you are conversing? Mm-hmm. How does that bring, what I'm hearing, Adam, is that brings more of an authentic connection to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it comes from understanding like what artificial intelligence really is, right? And we don't go into too much depth in it, but effectively it's just kind of like a little lottery system where based on like the preceding text, it's going to decide what's the most likely next word to come to bear from like its training data and how it works. And so what I try and do a lot of times with voice prompting is you're kind of trying to shake it up a little bit and say like, don't just go for what you think is the next most right thing. Like I want to give it like all these different thoughts, these different conflicting thoughts sometimes, because I want it to wrestle with that in order to create something that's going to be more nuanced, more aligned with how I actually think. And so when I can tell it things like, when I can just talk on a walk or something and tell it things like, I really believe in this idea of permissionless value proposition where, you can send value because we understand. But at the same time, I also like to ask permission. Like it's starting to understand those things, like, because I want it to understand that it's not just a black and white and here's 5, listed things of exactly what to do. And like, I want it to bring a little bit more of me through that. And so one of my favorite ways to do that is just to talk, just to ramble, because it's easier for us to talk than it is for us to type. And so the key here is to add as much context to AI as possible in order to get better and more human results.
Yes, no, I think that's good. And it just does get you closer to that person of understanding what it is. Speaking of talking, I do want to go back to this conference that we attended in September. I know you did a lot of outreach to people before the conference on LinkedIn. And it's funny, one of my friends, who I will not name on this podcast, you reached out to her in a voice note, and the way you connected with her was very different than how you connected with me. And I thought it was really very appropriate. She's not in my age range, or okay, she's not in my generation. You connected in a much different way than how you approached me. And I really want to applaud you for that, because we have to be sensitive to who our audience is. And I don't know if it was you or somebody else came on and might have even had on a song that, kids listen to in the background, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Was it you? Was it you?
It was me. Yeah.
It was you doing that.
So we were driving to actually the airport to go to this conference, Selwell, in Houston. And I had my son, my dog, my daughter in the car, and we were bumping, as the kids say, we were bumping to K-pop Demon Hunter, which is all the rage. And it was going off in the background. And I was just like, hey, headed to the airport. So excited, just listening to these tunes, excited to meet you, get to know you, and just have this really exciting experience. And because there is like, sometimes I do want to like bring that I want to bring that humanity in, and just like, why not have fun with it? Like, why can't we do business and have fun and just enjoy life? But like you said, there are different, you approach people differently. Yes. And you try and match that, but at the same time, I always steer a little bit more towards the human side.
Yeah,
but it was fun. It was a really great experience.
It was great because I was like, I didn't get that song, but it was really connected with her, and it really resonated with her. So I saw that in action. So our conversations, Adam, have been a case study.
There you go.
It's really
and actually that's a perfect example of like a value first outreach. If I know that someone's going to the conference, I know what they're probably trying to get out of a conference, because we're all, trying to get networking, connections, opportunities, just like, great people out of a conference like that. That was one of my strategies, was to say like, how could I do outreach in a systematic way to, everyone that's going to this conference that I was able to uncover was attending, in order to start to lay the foundation for, let's get the awkward, weird thing out of the way so that we can have a real conversation when we get to it. And so for her, it was like, I'm just going to have some background music and chat. For you, it was, expressing my interest in what you were going to be talking about and kind of a curiosity in that space. Again, it comes from that place of understanding, a place of empathy, a place of looking at who am I actually reaching out to? So I don't get into what we call the glad to connect trap, right? Where you get on a DM, you're like, hey, glad to connect. It's like, what do you say after that? I don't know, because I haven't taken the time to understand who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, and how I might be able to facilitate or help you along that journey.
Right. So, or even the next step, tell me why you're glad to connect. What are you curious about? Like, give me, all of that going there. So Adam, when I work with people, because one thing I do is I help people uncover who they are without this mask that we've been told to wear. All right. And there's something I have discovered called visibility reluctance. All right. They are reluctant to become visible for a number of different reasons. But as you work with businesses to help them with their content, how can creators learn whether they're in alignment with who they are versus forcing this visibility strategy of, I've got to post this many times a week and this is the way I have to do it? How do you work with owners on that?
Yeah. I think the way I work has evolved over time. In the beginning, I was following the systems that everyone else said, which was, you got to post like 4 times. Like one of them's got to be like a how-to, one of them's got to be a personal story, one of them's got to be and those types of frameworks are valuable kind of in the very beginning, just to open yourself up to this idea of creating. But what I've started to find is that the content that I create and the content that my clients are creating that does and performs the best is the one where they have leaned into and are truly authentically themselves. The ones where AI is great at a lot of things, and I use it for content creation as well in certain ways. But like sometimes it's the ones where you like sit down and it's bad writing, but it's truly you just typing away. Like those are the pieces that often get the most opportunity, like the best results, both in numbers wise, but then also like a resonance piece. And so for some people, that's pulling up in a camera and just talking, like not even taking the time to put transcripts on there, not even taking the time to script it, just actually talking. That can be, if that's how they represent themselves, like forget engagement, forget all that stuff. Just start producing and creating and sharing the way that feels most honest and authentic to you. And so for some people that is typing, for some people that is video, for some people when we're doing outreach, it's audio messages. So some people can just click on the record and like send a really nice audio message, and that cuts through the noise because they're able to show up as themselves. They get to hear you and see your voice, hear your voice and kind of like get a feel for who you are. So those kind of things I think are really how you can like bring that authenticity piece back. And don't worry about the numbers, both on the engagement side and on the volume side. Just really trying to empathize with your audience, really trying to empathize, like what actually would they get away from this, and how can I help them achieve something? Like that would be the gold standard. It's like you create something that someone literally is able to go implement and like makes their life better, whether that's motivation, whether that's a framework, whether that's a skill, whether that's a tip or an idea or like a resource that they can touch on. But how cool is that to say, like, I could really affect someone through this medium of content.
And what I hear from that, Adam, is this visibility reluctance, I think, is often more about us than it is about our audience. Whereas when you are serving them, which is what I heard, right? Value first, serving them, well, then it becomes about them. And so that's a nice shift in doing that.
Yeah, I would double click on that just for a second there, if that's okay. I mean, absolutely. When you take the spotlight off yourself and you really start to empathize and understand with the people that you're trying to help and serve, it actually it unlocks it. It becomes easier and freer to create content because it's not about you. It's not about what you want or think, or it's how can I help someone? And then again, in doing so, you get a chance to actually be more visible. You get a chance to actually show yourself. And so it's just like that mental shift to say, like, this is for someone else, and I'm going to do a good job, for them. And that's right. So.
All right. So we're offering value. We're starting those conversations. How do you move it from online to off screen? What does that look like in your world?
You mean like in real life type interactions,
Yeah, like
or?
how does that lead to business? Like how do you go from that interaction offering value to now we're going to transition into continuing a relationship?
Yeah. So two things on that. One is I think in the day and age that we live in, like the internet's a great place. A lot of my clients are just spread all over the world, and so it's difficult for me to say like we're going to meet in real life, although we'll touch on that in a second because that's like one of my favorite things. But this idea of kind of moving it into, I would say like a more deeper interaction is the direction I would take it. I actually am a fan of what we call them coffee chats, but I try and like actually bring coffee to the coffee chat. Like, let's get on a call and just have a conversation, and just like really take it and kind of like start to understand like what are people struggling with, what are they trying to accomplish. I don't know if that kind of answers your question there, but one of my favorite ways to do that is walking chats. So instead of us sitting at the nice camera here and having this conversation, what does it look like to effectively jump on like a FaceTime or, a WhatsApp or something along those lines and just go on a walk together? It's like, hey, we're both going to go on a walk and we're just going to have a conversation because you just talk differently when you're moving. And so that's just like a way of getting to know someone, because a lot of my client work is very relational. It's very much like me. We're talking about your business. We're talking about your content strategy. We're talking about what you're trying to accomplish. And so breaking down the walls from as early as possible to say like, no, let's just have a human interaction. And then we can really start to dig into where we're headed. That has been very effective for me. But as far as like meeting in person, I would say conferences I know they get a bad rap sometimes. They're so much fun. It's like you get a chance to meet all these people that all we know them of is their LinkedIn profile picture. And you'd be like, you're actually a living, breathing human being. This is great. And so the chance to just like have those hallway conversations, again, which is why I like to do the pre-work, which is reaching out to people before the conference. That way we go into it with this, not only have I seen your content, but we've had a little bit of back and forth, maybe even a quick call. And that way we can really dive in and be like, this is great. I really appreciate meeting you, that kind of thing.
And I love your suggestion of the walk and talk because, getting on a Zoom screen, again, we're still performing. It takes us back to circa 2020 when we were all in that awkward situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But walking is, here's my dog. And, they're sorry, the yard people, the blowers are blowing. Like, it's more of something that we can really relate to, right? With the other person of what they're dealing with. And I think it does accelerate that conversation. So I'm going to suggest doing that a little bit.
Yeah. And you get a little exercise, a little fresh air in it at the same time.
Certainly do. Do. So Adam, if someone's listening right now and feeling successfully stuck, I'm doing all these things, creating content, no traction.
Yeah.
What's the very first move you tell them to make this week?
Yeah. If you are making content that you find like is truly valuable and it's just not getting the results, one of the easiest, simplest things is to start outreach, but by sharing content. Right? Just take what you've already done and start reaching out to people. And the key there is to like, okay, but you have to do your homework on that. It's like, okay, let me go find or think through like, who am I actually trying to reach out to? What are they actually struggling with that I can help? And then which of the resource that I create can I send to someone to solve it? Because in doing so, one, you either have great conversations, or two, you start to see that things aren't clicking, or you start to like question what you've done previously. And that's good, because you start to say, wait, I don't actually know who I can help. And I don't actually know what they're struggling with. And I don't really believe any of the things that I've created would actually solve their problem. Those are all red flags to say like, great, this is fantastic. This is, a good insight or reminder as to what it is that we're trying to do. And so just like that simple practice of, is this piece of content, or is this idea, or is this concept, or white paper, newsletter, whatever it is, a podcast, is this something that someone else would find value in? And how could I get that to them in a one-on-one way that then will lead to the opportunity to have a real meaningful conversation with them. So that's something you could do today. Look back through the catalog of stuff you've done. Who are you actually trying to help? And it's not a demographic thing. It's not, marketing or founders of like marketing agencies, within this age range in this specific place. It's like, how can we start to understand who someone is and what they're actually struggling with so that we can get them a solution? And so in doing that, you'll learn a lot about your content. You'll learn a lot about whether you understand what you're trying to accomplish or not. Yeah.
Yes, it is a learning process, but there's a lot of value in being able to do it. Well, Adam, it is very clear why you stand out in the ability to make a connection. So if people want to know how to work with you or reach out to you, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the place that I live. It's just a great platform for connection, and is a great place for me to practice what I preach, which is producing valuable content that I think people will get something out of. So if you're interested in connecting, learning more, hit me up on LinkedIn. You can search Adam Pounds, and I'll come up. I have a company with my wife, Maggie, where we help basically people do this. I have a both from like an outreach perspective, but also just like a content and like strategy piece, because sometimes that's what the unlock that people need. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'm always sharing interesting things and down to connect.
You are sharing interesting things, and I love your content. So it is so real. So Adam, thank you so much for this reminder that connection, not content, is the real currency. And those of you listening, we will put all of the links in the show notes to make it real easy for you. For our listeners, your next step is simple. Pick one piece of content you've already created. Identify one person who needs it right now and start a conversation. Lead with that value. It is how we move from transaction to transformation, and it's how we bring that humanity back to business, and it's how we get unstuck, which is where we all want to be, right? So if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's ready to trade performance for presence. And if you're looking for a community of peers building their business, be sure to check out my Beyond the Transaction community, and you can learn more about that and the show notes as well. So until next time, remember, you don't need to be louder. You just need to be real. We'll see you here next week. Thanks for joining us.